there's you guys fives, and I'll reel off my five. I'm sure it's not predictable at all what my five's going to be. So let's go from 5 to 1. My number 5 on the N64 is WrestleMania 2000. My number 4 on the N64 is WCW versus NWO World Tour. My number 3 on the N64, but in Japan, is Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. My number 2 on the N64 is WCW versus NWO Revenge. And my number 1, just about, on the N64 is WWF No Mercy.
Oh, well, I like that one. I like that.
And am I doing a bit? Maybe, but not really. They're the 5 best wrestling games of all time. I think we've done Fire Pro to service today. I'm sure there's people out there screaming about it.
Oh.
None of us are Fire Pro gamers. I just never really got into it. Maybe it should be in there. Maybe. But yeah, you ain't a Fire Pro guy either, JP?
No, do you know what? I tried to buy Fire Pro recently and I couldn't get on with it. Simple as that. Like, it just wasn't what I wanted from it. And it was like, there are people who like this, but this might be like Civilization or something. I'm never going to play it. And there's a whole conversation about the games we've missed. If you go to that SmackDown Hotel games, it's brilliant. It's like all about wrestling games. They've got all the stuff about the Japanese games that come out. So Wrestle Kingdom is a thing because of the name itself, because that was the name of the video game. And they also were a lot more kind of loose with copyright law, which makes for a better experience of it as well. And they worked on the engines. Like it was it was like a hub of video game developers. And I just wished I could honestly go back and hand myself like a chipped PS1, PS2, go, right, crack on, lad, get them in, and then just disappear off. I don't think it'll cause too much of a butterfly effect, but I look at screenshots and I'm just fucking gutted. It's just
we need to go back and give young JP an N64. That's what we need to do.
Definitely.
Fucking did need it, mate.
But the reason these are me 5 is like, and they're in slightly different order, but like they are the best wrestling games of all time. Like No Mercy versus Revenge is like is a debate we can get into, but like I've got a soft spot on my heart for WCW versus the World on the PlayStation, and I get why it's on your lists, but it didn't hold a candle to World Tour, which is not me number 4, which is the first version of that engine on the N64. It's a direct port of the original Virtual Pro Wrestling. So it's like, again, same thing, a lot of the same roster. You know, you can go Great Muta, and there's like Tenzan and people like that in there that are under different names. I think a couple of the members of Kai and Tai were in there. I think Takamichi Shinoku's in there. Like, I was old enough to realize who those people were, at least to a point at that point, but it was very bare bones. It was just, let's just import Sting and a couple, like 3 or 4 members of the NWO. It was like Hall, Nash, Six, and Hogan, and maybe Giant with the entire NWO members you could go on it. But it was a very limited WCW roster. But like, again, my cousin Gary got it for Christmas that year. It made me get an N64 because I just find it was one of those. It was like I'd find any excuse to go round. Like, we used to, like, on a Saturday go around to me nan and granddad's who lived down the road from them. And, like, I'd always be like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to go down to Gary's and just see what they're up to, just so I could play World Tour. And then it'd just become, like, a random Thursday. I'd just turn up at their house, hoping they'd let me get on the N64. Yeah, they even had their NWO Sting for video viewers, JP's.
Jeff Farmer.
Up on the screen there. Yeah, Jeff Farmer. Jeff Farmer got a payday. I hope he's still getting...
Yeah.
I hope he was getting money for that. So the NWO roster actually is bigger than I said. Savage is hidden on that. You can't really do a proper elbow drop, but still. Yeah. And then there's loads of like independent wrestlers, Dead or Alive, all those other companies and that. And it's the core. This is the base on which the rest of the games are built. And obviously Revenge is a gigantic jump from that, because Revenge is like, you got the entire Cruiserweight division in it. You could be Psychosis,
the Jobbers, Van Hammer, anyone, everyone on the rock, unbelievable.
And everyone had so much detail. Like you know, they all had like again to throw shade at the AEW game, 4 outfits, unbelievable.
Oh, that's my biggest bear with the games of like technology's moved on so much in 25 years. Why is that not an option? We want different attires on wrestlers.
To be in charge for it is the answer, I think.
Is that what it is?
But then everyone would like Sting. You could be different versions of DDP, as you've got on screen there. I had like a version of him with the remember his wrist, his waist.
Yeah.
There was a version of him with that, and there's the NWO guys. You get a version of with the NWO outfit. Conan was in there. It's the best roster in a game ever, I would say, 100%.
It's just, look at it now. Yeah, Sting would be the wolf pack, wouldn't he? And then like, you know, your Crow Sting, Surfer Sting. It's just the best, man.
What year was this? What year was this out?
in 98, I think,
Eight.
or maybe
Yeah,
99.
I want to
Because
say
Bulldog and
98.
Nidart are there, aren't they? So it must have come out in 98.
Yeah, 98, yeah, 98. So it's like pure the best. If you've not played it, guys, that's the one. Like
Yeah.
to get an old N64, you can borrow mine behind here and pick up because it's like the AW game now. The best thing about that game is there's so many wrestlers.
Yeah.
You've got so much depth. Like DDP does like a diamond cutter off like from 4 different situations.
Yeah.
It's not just the finish. Low, there's you can do running spots off the apron like Liger's dive. They made full use of the entire surroundings, you know what I mean? Springboards and top ropes. It's almost the perfect wrestling game. It'll get eclipsed later, but roster wise and just fun wise, like it's totally there.
Even weapons better, innit? They would select like the stop sign for Raven and the 2x4, but it looked really. I know they go over the top with the weapons. It just looks snug. It was just brilliant.
Why didn't I have an N64? I was at uni. Like, obviously, I was
that weed wasn't going to buy itself, mate.
I was going to say I was spending my money on other things at that time, but fucking hell, like, Jesus Christ, like there, I'm just looking at that. I'm like, that's all I would have done with that roster. I'd have just played that constantly, like
all day. And it had so many, you had the career mode and stuff. You go after all the WCW belts, but I think you could. I can't remember how much you could edit the wrestlers, but you could do a little bit of editing. But there was just depth there, and just being able to you could do like 4-way matches. Like I think that was a first in that game as well. Tag matches, all kinds of stuff. Rumble / Battle Royals. It had all the WCW sets as well, like Halloween Havoc and
brilliant.
All the amount of detail. It's like it's not just the detail. It actually played well as well, and that was the thing. Most games would get one or the other. That had both. And that was the thing when we used to play it in our Gary's, and then when I had it, the conversation always used to be, but imagine if you could get the WWF roster on this game.
Purely.
And then they put out WrestleMania 2000s, which is actually lower on my list because they don't really do anything with it to make it. It's another exact port. WWF bought the engine, or I think AKI took over making the WWF games, however you'd explain it. But they basically took over the game. And it was the same exact game, but with the 1999 WWF roster on it, which was always interesting because Jericho's in both, and it's literally just the same Jericho with just different tights on. Like they made no effort to I don't think they developed him any further or anything like. It was like, well, he's in this company now, so perfect. That makes our life easier. But it is cool because then you can go Austin and Undertaker and Kane, and they added a couple of extra moves you could do, like running grapples. You could do like a running DDT when you were Undertaker and stuff like that. But it's just not as good as fun a game, I think, because of the roster of Revenge. So that's why that's way out as my number 5. And then, the big one, No Mercy. That's like, I thought Revenge was the perfect wrestling game, but the thing about No Mercy is they add even more, like, there's more running grapples you can do. There's more like apron dives. There's more moves in the game. There's more depth. They've added on to that WrestleMania 2000 roster, and it's, again, perfect time to do it because the Radicals have came in. So, Benoit's in there, Angle's in there. That's another big one. And it's a perfect time to be the WWF roster because it's massive and there's so many good wrestlers like in the WWF.
Barry Buchanan made the game there.
Yeah,
Mae Young. You could go Mae Young, Gareth.
You could, yeah.
I'm just looking here. I can get an N64 for 60 quid here on eBay. I'm like,
Gareth, you're have a great time.
Linda
McMahon. I wish I was you.
Linda McMahon, fucking hell.
But it's just the gameplay is a lot more detailed than the Revenge version. There's just more you can do. They've built on it and they've built on it. It's the perfect wrestling game. It is. I thought Revenge was. This is the reason everyone brings up No Mercy when AW was developing the game. It's just so sad that there was supposed to be a sequel to No Mercy. And it just didn't happen. They just never got it out because the N64 was end of life. I've seen some screen grabs of it and stuff and what it was supposed to look like, and it would have been, might have been a different world if they carried on.
I didn't know about this, Ben. I didn't know about this.
Yeah. One of those used to be worldwide. That Twitter account had some screens. I can't remember what it was supposed to be called. It was called WCW Sin or something like that. It was one of the new school pay-per-view names. It was.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows what they sorry, no, I'm getting mixed up. There was a WCW game, WWF, so there was supposed to be another WCW game that didn't make, but there was another WWF game they were going to make later as well. I think that was maybe called Backlash. I think was the plan to push on with. But yeah, I mean, I've got to shout out as well. No Mercy, everyone knows is great. I did include Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 as my third game. Has anyone played that? JP, have you ever played it?
No, I haven't. No. And again, it fits into the kind of like,
because that's like.
That's the Japanese famous. Yeah,
Wasn't
that's
that
the
what
Japanese one.
WCW versus the World? That was just that, wasn't
It
it?
was
Basically,
effectively based on that, wasn't it?
So
Just-
WCW versus the World and WCW NWO World Tour were based on the first version of that, and then the second version of that is the one it's basically the equivalent of Revenge, but for Japan. And I only played that like maybe 10 years ago. Me and Cole got it like on a ROM or something like that. And it's Kobashi, Misawa, all of those guys, all Japan / Noah guys, like that generation. Kawada, Vader's in it, Stan Hansen's in it, and they absolutely perfected the game engine for that Japanese style. You have those matches, and like it feels like you're literally doing a Misawa versus Kawada match or a Kobashi versus Vader or Stan Hansen match, because the way the momentum shifts.
Well,
the way the momentum. Yeah, oh, you go. That's good.
Yeah.
Johnny Ace is in there as well. I would never go in.
Fucking
but Vader's
Bolt
perfect
Cannon
in it as well.
Yeah.
Vader's amazing in it. Everyone's got all their moves. The burning hammer's like a secret special that you can do with Kobashi. But the way the spirit engine works in the Americanized version of these games is great.
Real masculinist, though.
Maybe some of the best wrestling games of all time. But the Japanese one, because that's how Japanese matches go, like that works so well in those games. So you get to like the finishing sequence and like somebody kicks out at 2.99 and then you come back and you do your other finisher and then they just about kick out. Like the momentum changes and the super finishes that finally end it feel like you're really having a wrestling match. Like you get that feeling in that game in a way you don't get with the other N64 games during that period. It's that's the geek's choice. That's my number 3. But I think most of the hardcore people would say that's number 1 because it's the Puro game, but it just nails Puro. Like that's one. If you're going down this mission to get in the N64, Gareth, we need to find a way to get you the import of Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. I've got a translator somewhere because that was the other problem. It's all in Japanese. You have to figure out what each of the menus mean, but you work it out eventually. It all makes sense.
2023, someone sort of sorted that shit.
Yeah, I was going to say
maybe they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be on forums like in like the early 2000s, like when I was on the ROH forum and stuff, because people still mod No Mercy to this day, and I had like a ROH versus TNA mod of No Mercy where it had all the peak ROH guys in it and all the peak TNA guys. 2014, yeah, all the moves edited in, all the attires edited in. You could only play it on your PC. But like people are still doing it to this day. People hack the game entirely now and create their own venues and moves and gameplay modes. Like that entire subculture of people, like it's unbelievable the work they're able to do. With an old game that came out in 2000.